SB, Max Roach, and Oscar Peterson. What was unique about Detroit, in fact, I'm born and raised in Harlem, New York. So just to compare Detroit, reason why Detroit was so significant. Detroit had three things that made it significant with regard to music. One, you had, well, four things made. One, you had a large black population that was moving here from all over the country. Mr. Ford had offered that money, and we talk about $5 a week. That's almost equivalent to like $120 a day. That was major money, that was serious money. People in the South were making pennies, and some were making nothing. So $5 a day was more than folk could even ever imagine. It was so, the money was so great that people moved here from Eastern Europe. That's why you went to Hamtramck. Folk were coming here from all over the world to get that money. You had Appalachian whites who basically lived south of Jefferson. They were coming to get money. You had this huge Arab population. We talk about Arabs. Arabs have been coming to Detroit since the 1920s. Talk about the Spanish people who live in over by Corktown, southwest Detroit. Say, what are these Spanish people doing here? They've been coming to Detroit since 1920s. Many of their families go all the way back. Many of the Irish who populated Corktown. But Mr. Ford, he was paying $5 an hour. That went out. It's the equivalent right now. Just imagine today, if someone told you there was a job where you could work, you need any education, and they were paying $120 a day. If they told you that job was in California, let me tell you something, the road would be burned up, wouldn't it? That's the way it was. It was the equivalent to $120 a day. Folks were leaving from around the world. So what that meant is that all these new people were coming to Detroit. Right? And so they were bringing their traditions of the blues and also European music, Latin music, and so Detroit had one, a huge new population. Number two, Detroit had something significant. You had people making money. So what's also significant about that, for jazz, you need a piano. So we stopped playing the player pianos, and they had the piano. What's significant about that is that people here had homes and apartments that were large enough to have a piano. I'm from Harlem. I grew up in apartments. Our apartments were so small that you go by Thelonious Monk's house. Thelonious had a piano. The piano was in bass player Paul Chambers, Doug Watkins, all the Coney Guards. Of course, you had Tommy Flanagan, but you also had people like Barry Harris, right? All these people, some of the early people from Detroit that laid the foundation of Blue Note Records. There is no Blue Note Records without Detroit. Detroit was the foundation of Art Blake and the Jazz Messengers. It was the foundation of Horace Silver's quintet. When Horace Silver, when Louis Hayes played Horace, he got ready to leave, what did he do? He called Northwestern High School and got Roy Brooks to come and replace him as the drummer. So all the major, early major groups were Detroiters. And the three largest producers of music in jazz, in the history of jazz, all come from Detroit. Ron Carter, the bassist, and Doug Watkins, the bassist, have produced more records than anybody else in the history of the jazz in the United States. Detroiters were the foundation of bebop and the foundation of the progressive jazz music, because you had money here, you had people making money, you had homes, and you had people who could afford to play instruments. It's not like growing up in New York. We didn't have major industries. My parents both had good jobs. They worked in the New York subway system. Most folks worked in the garment district. We used to call the numbers racket, but it's business, or some folks, they call it policy. Without policy, first of all, there's no cab company. There's no city cab, first cab company. There is no Joe Louis, because they funded Joe Louis. The other thing is, there is no Palmer Park golf course, right? But the numbers guys got together and tell you how tricky they were. They weren't all nice fellas now. They got together and they built Palmer Park golf course for themselves and kept the other working class Negroes out that park. That was the park for them. I understand that now. They were practicing a kind of class discrimination themselves. That was their park. So in terms of the golf. So a lot of the businesses that we're talking about in Detroit, a lot of the clubs, there's no Bluebird without the numbers business, right? There's no jazz. Mr. Du Bois and Clarence Eddings were numbers men. But the other guys were the numbers guys, the guy Rubb, who was the father of Carolyn Chicks Kilpatrick, right, the congresswoman. These guys ran numbers business. You talk about the building trades in Detroit, you had the brothers off the west side used to own Greenleaf's restaurant. The brothers owned it, I forget